Hello, podcast listeners. You are now listening to the Coffee, Health, and Science Podcast. I'm your host, Jordan River, and I want to thank you for tuning in today. Before we get started, as always, I urge you to spread the show. Please tell a friend about the Coffee, Health, and Science Podcast. Make sure you're subscribed. Give us a good rating and review. It really helps us out here at the show. Today, we have from Ally Coffee and a good friend of the show, we got Bram back on the line. What's up, my friend?
Hey, Jordan. How's it going? It's a pleasure to be back.
Yes, we always love hearing from you. Now, usually, we are talking to you from your coffee farm down south. But as you've said on the show before, you are a Dutch originated coffeeman. You are from the Netherlands originally, and that's where you are right now, is it not?
Yeah, that's correct. I'm at my parents' house, to be precise. Very happy to be back home in the Netherlands for a short holiday after almost 2 years. So it's definitely good to be back and to get a little bit of the feel again of the local scene here as well in terms of coffee.
Oh my God, yeah. I can't wait to talk about Europe and coffee, Netherlands and coffee, and everything like that. First, though, what do you do with the farm when you're halfway across the world?
Yeah, it's difficult. I'm here for 6 weeks in total. And usually I would spend every 15 days, I would be doing something at the farm. So I actually left very detailed instructions for my mother-in-law to take care of the farm. And I hope everything's going well. The reporting has been not the best. Good at times, 1 or 2 video calls. But yeah, I can't have it all, I guess. So I hope when I come back, it will all be good. We're preparing for harvest time, so it's a very crucial time. But hopefully, when I get back there, it's about to be ripe and I can start harvesting.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, let's kind of do a little wrap up on things there before we move to Europe. It's funny you say that. I thought you were going to have some strategy, but it's just like anyone else's house plants or anyone else's garden. You just leave very detailed instructions and you hope for the best.
Yeah, exactly. It would be best to hire somebody to come every Saturday, but it's still on that tipping point of, is that a sensible decision to make? Yes or no? So we'll see. Maybe next year we can work towards that, because then the farm will actually start producing, and then I could, hopefully sell the coffee for some hopefully decent money somewhere.
Wow.
And then at least it's self-sustaining economically.
That is pretty cool,
because it is an expensive hobby.
An expensive hobby, I can imagine. So I know Brazil got rocked with a frost and more.
Yeah.
What was that like? Did you guys get any cool weather where you were, or not so much?
No, Costa Rica was fine. We get crazy weather sometimes, but it doesn't have nearly as big of an influence on the market or the coffee scene as Brazil has.
Right.
Just because of the volume that Brazil produces. But for Ally as a company, it was very volatile times. Every day is quite stressful to see what's going to happen and where is all this going to go to.
Jeez. Yeah, I know for a second people were really worried and prices were going up and they were worried about a second frost and prices going even higher. And then it seems like those fears have kind of calmed a little bit since then, in my lay observation.
Yeah.
Does it seem that way?
Yeah, that's correct. So that October, so the coming weeks, that will be the main flowering periods in Brazil. And that will then be a new indication to see what will happen or what can we expect in the future. So, but now it's a little bit like laying low, I should say. And also the market has been trading more within a smaller range. So there's less volatility in the market. And we're about to see what will happen for the coming year in Brazil.
I just did a whole report on coffee prices.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just such a shame how all of these prices swing and sway. And really, it all falls onto the farmer. We're paying the same price at Starbucks. And it's really a shame because those few cents difference to the farmer can be life and death. Whereas if we would probably just pay an extra 5 cents on our cup, we might be able to really help some people and save some farmers' livelihoods, it seems like.
Exactly, yeah. And that, especially that volatility is dangerous. Even if the price is high, if it's only high for 2 days, that can lead to bad decisions or bad timing. So stability is what is just as important as the price itself. Obviously, it needs to be a stable high price or high enough price.
Jeez.
But even if you have such huge spikes, people actually can lose a lot of money in that by doing the wrong thing.
That is really That is really worrisome. And I read reports of even, in a nightmare scenario, if the price gets too low, there's going to be harvests that aren't worth harvesting. There's going to be cherries that just rot on the tree because it's not worth paying the laborers to pick them. Is that a possible scenario?
It is, and it is, and it isn't. I think people will almost always pick the cherries, unless you really don't have. It depends on the size of the farm as well. But then in the hope that the price will go up, right?
Right.
There's only been a couple of instances in the past in which coffee was actually burned. Millions of bags were literally burned to drive the price back up. But those are some extreme measures. I'm not sure we will see again, but that was, I think, it was last century. It's quite a long time ago.
Wow, man. I got to look into that.
Yeah.
Where did that occur?
It was in Brazil. There's actually a podcast, if you are interested in coffee yourself as well. It's called, I think, The History of Coffee.
Oh, I got to talk to these guys.
Yeah, you got to talk to them. And they made an amazing podcast about the history of coffee. And they touch a lot upon price in the past and what has caused prices to go super high or super low, basically.
Wow. Fascinating stuff. Yeah, I got to talk to those guys. Well, I hope that everything works out down there, man. I've been, itching to get back down to Colombia, get down there, visit you possibly, go with the Purity team. Obviously travel's kind of goofed up right now, but you didn't seem to have much trouble getting out of there, going back home for a little vacation. That's cool that you got to slip back to the Netherlands.
Yeah, definitely. It's, I'm quite an avid traveler, so I don't get stressed easily. But this trip was definitely more stressful, especially because I was traveling together with my fiance as well.
Oh, man.
She's Costa Rican, so she didn't have that same luxury of being granted entry for sure. So we had to jump through a couple more hoops. So it's definitely, if you don't like traveling already, this is not a good time to travel. But if you're somewhat of an avid traveler, you're good to go.
Well, we're happy that you're safe. You're safe and sound back in the home of the Netherlands. Man, I love the Netherlands. Really, just love the Dutch people and the Dutch culture and all of that. But why don't we talk coffee? I'd love to, because we talk so much about your farm and South America and all this, but why don't we swing it back over to Europe and the Netherlands and coffee? Come on. I gotta imagine. I know for a fact, Dutch people love their coffee, man.
Yeah, indeed. We're actually, I think the latest research showed that the Dutch are the highest per capita consumers of coffee. So we beat Finland.
What?
We beat Finland to it, yeah.
Wow.
I think that's for 2020. And yeah, I've grown up just with the image of the coffee pod and the bricks in everybody's houses and homes. These cute tiny grinders on the wall.
You guys have wall grinders over there?
Yeah, definitely. And here's where I started my coffee career, almost 11 years ago, in a small coffee shop here in my town of Gouda, doing the dishes basically.
Wow, man!
And it's always good to be back here and reconnect a little bit with this side of an industry as well.
Wow, that is super cool. So you got your start all the way back there, washing coffee mugs.
Yeah, definitely.
What does it look like there as far as consumption? I know some European cultures take their coffee very specifically. I don't know if it's like that in the Netherlands or if you guys like to mix it up like Americans do.
Yeah, here it's become somewhat of a mix. You have people generally know that in the south, so Spain and Italy and Greece are avid espresso drinkers.
Right.
And in the north, so Sweden, Denmark, Norway, Finland, they're all about filter coffee.
Right.
And the Nordics, they drink coffee all day, all night. And here in the Netherlands, it's become sort of a mix. So the filter coffee is just a coffee pod. That's the tradition, right? Just black coffee or black coffee with milk. But in recent years, nonetheless, 20, 30 years, the espresso has definitely gained a lot of market. And now in home consumption, it's a lot about the pods as well. People love the pods here.
Oh, yeah.
And espresso.
People getting down on K-cups.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. Keurig here is pretty small, actually, or it's not that popular. It's all about the Nespresso machines.
Oh, the Nespresso style. Okay, I see what you mean.
Yeah. But the interesting thing is that, and I'm not sure if I'm 100% correct on this technically, but I believe the Nespresso patents have expired. So all roasters can put coffee in pods that fit in espresso machines.
Right. Eventually those, yeah, kind of like the K-Cup, right?
Yeah, exactly. So you see now a lot of roasters, both commodity and specialty roasters, are developing their own Nespresso pods.
Wow. It seems like a really great way to brew.
Yeah, it's very convenient. But the interesting thing is you're seeing some crazy stuff. So there's a roaster in the UK called Colana that I know are always putting like geishas in Nespresso pots, and it just seems kind of crazy. I haven't had the pleasure of trying it, but there's definitely roasters and consumers are taking new directions with these pods as well.
Why, as someone who's not as well versed as you, why is that crazy?
That's a good question. I think when you think about these super luxury or exotic coffees, right, such as the geisha variety or some crazy processes, coffees that tend to cost well over $50 a kilo or a pound. And then you think, there's something you brew with a
Whole
lot
bean,
of care, right?
sure, yeah. You don't process that in any way, is what you're saying. It's usually
exactly.
a very I don't know, man. Give the people what they want, right?
Exactly. Or it's done like at a coffee shop by a professional barista. But now roasters are making some sort of a push to bring that super luxury experience into the home. And I guess they're having success because they continue to do it. And an interesting factor is that it actually allows the roaster to control more the way the consumer is experiencing their coffee. And I think that's a huge value that we hadn't had before. Because when you sell a bag of beans, you have no idea what the consumer will do with it if they were brewed correctly.
Oh, I see. From a producer standpoint, I thought you were talking about from the brewer. No, 100%. You're right.
Yeah.
Because if a brewer is using beans, you have no idea. The brew process could turn out completely different, or at the very least, completely inconsistent one brewer to another. From a producer standpoint, those pods, those K cups, like Purity does with their K cups.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I think it's good to give the people what they want. But it's interesting that you're saying these really rare varieties that are usually reserved for, real connoisseurs who wouldn't use these types of machines. They're making their way into pods.
Yeah. Can you reduce the parameters to almost nothing? Only the water, basically, and the quality of the machine will influence the final cup. So you can give much more accurate descriptors, and you can really start to control that experience the coffee drinker has at home.
Wow.
Without being in their home, of course.
Without being over their shoulder, correcting
exactly.
their methods.
Mm-hmm.
No, that is a good point. There are very few factors left at that point when the heat and the time is automated like that. Really cool, man. So no traditional Dutch drink? No like cappuccino de Amsterdam type thing? De Amsterdam?
Yeah, what we have as tradition, I would say, is a very popular brewing machine, which is called the Mocha Master. I'm not sure
I've never heard of this now. The Mocha Master.
Yeah. It is one of the most well-known, best brewers, I dare to say, or it often comes out of the consumer test top one, whatever you want to call it. It's quite a staple product, especially in Europe, but also in the US. That's still hand assembled in the Netherlands. So that is our little pride.
Oh, I've seen these. Yeah, the Mocha Master, MOCCA.
Yeah,
the Mocha Master. Oh, I have seen those before. Wow. So this is what kind of system is that? It looks like a drip system, but more complicated.
Yeah, it's a dripper. It's quite easy. It's just made out of, I think it's made mainly out of copper and other high quality materials. So this is the type of machine, you buy one, it will work for the next 50 years. Right. It will never break down.
Wow.
But it does quite a simple thing. It drips hot water onto a bed of coffee grounds.
Oh, so it is just a really, really nice. Oh, is that a grinder that's next to it?
No, it doesn't grind. So you need to grind it separately.
Oh, so there's two chambers. I'm not sure. But yeah, you're right. These look really, really nice. Doesn't look like you find one for under 300 USD.
Exactly.
And they look really sleek, man. The Mocha Master.
Yeah, so that's our little pride, I would say, in terms of coffee industry. And yeah, we have, a large community here of small sized and larger sized specialty coffee roasters also doing their thing and trying to make their mark both local and international.
Wow. That is really interesting, man. What about the market out in Europe? I mean, I'm sure it doesn't change much that, like, for instance, we grow a little bit of coffee here in the States, but I mean, it doesn't change anything. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Barely any production is coming out of here. If you're importing, you're importing. But
Yeah.
how does the European coffee market differ from, say, the United States?
I think there's a larger percentage here of conscious consumers. So people who are very conscious about what they eat and drink. And coffee has always been one of the main products people consider in their purchasing.
I would totally agree with that. That's a really good point, especially when it comes to coffee. You guys are kind of light years ahead of us.
Yeah, so you can definitely see a growing interest still of organic and fair trade or other certified coffees. And at the same time, you can really see the boundaries being pushed further. So now there's this large demand for carbon neutral products, including coffee. I think that's a very interesting development that we will see a lot of in the next 5 to 10 years as well.
Wow.
And that will slowly make its way into the US. But both in the EU and the UK, I see a lot of demand for that and a lot of potential as well.
Carbon neutral. What type of practices does that entail? If somebody's already running a rainforest friendly, certified, kind of regenerative, organic, is that going to be something easy for them to achieve? Or is it more about like the machine versus manual labor type stuff?
Indeed, what you say, if you run an agroforestry system, basically, 9 times out of 10, you will already be carbon neutral.
Cool.
Right.
Right.
But now the push is, okay, how can we make an inventory of that and prove it?
Right.
Basically. So it's somewhat of a two-step approach. So the first approach is measure. How much do I emit and how much do I capture? You emit by everything you do. So that is wood-fired ovens, the diesel of the tractors, the methane that's released when you're fermenting coffee, or the nitrogen oxide that evaporates when you're fertilizing. All those activities have its impact on the climate or have emissions. And at the same time, all your biomass you have on your farm, excluding coffee trees, because that's the produce, so that doesn't count, will capture carbon. So if you have a shade tree, in 1 year, that tree will grow. And by growing, it will actually store physical carbon in its leaves and in its branches and in its roots. So you make up somewhat of a balance, basically. So you measure that. And then the second step is, okay, how can I emit less and capture more? So we've seen some successful projects there with some of our partners in Costa Rica, such as Achiares, as well as Santa Anita, two very good farms in Costa Rica that implement these agroforestry models and have been able to show scientifically what their impact is in terms of carbon emissions and capture. And they turned out actually to be carbon negative. So they capture more carbon on their farm in their daily operations than they emit.
Wow. That is super fascinating. But then, like you said, it makes sense that if you're, doing a lot of these other practices, you're probably already there. But there might be a certification like this in the future where it's like this many other trees per acre. And like you said, this much captured, this much emitted. Is this a certification down the road?
Exactly. There are certifications already, but as it is with certifications, it's a little bit of this Wild West landscape. I would say with confusing language with multiple certifiers. So that kind of sucks.
Right.
To be honest. And it can create a confusion for the consumer. So, for example, some of the coffee we buy is carbon neutral. We cannot actually call the coffee itself carbon neutral, but we can say it has been produced by a carbon neutral company.
Oh.
So there are some of those little tweaks in the way you can put the language, the way it's measured. So it would be great if there was one clear guideline. But I would say probably there will be regulations by the European Union somewhere in the future.
Wow.
Because they are very heavy investing in this. And there will probably come some consumer protection law and regulations for that will start to streamline this. But for now, we're still very much in the Wild West, on the frontier of this.
Wow. Man, it is always super enlightening to speak with you. That's incredible. The carbon neutral production. That's something I'm going to be looking into for sure. And it's interesting that the European people, again, that makes sense that you guys are a little bit more cognizant of those types of things as a coffee consumer. There's still a lot of people here, running on Dunkin'. America runs on Dunkin'. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that is changing, I will say. It's definitely swinging in the right direction. But yeah, when it comes to Europe here, I know we're at the top of the hour. Maybe this will be the final question on European coffee. I know you've traveled as well.
Yeah.
Where do you like to go in Europe for consuming coffee? Who do you think does it best? What's the best cup you've had, and where?
Ooh, that's a difficult question. I love the Nordic countries for their love of filter coffee. I'm very much a filter coffee drinker myself, more so than espresso. But working so much alongside North Americans, I have tended a little bit more to a more developed roast. So the Nordic countries are infamous for their very light roasts.
Oh.
So you will definitely notice the difference if you do go there. And I like it a little bit more developed. So I think actually the UK does that very well, oftentimes to find that balance for me. Yeah. It's maybe a weird statement. Don't quote me on it. But they, when I try roasts from roasters from the UK, they have this nice balance between the, comparing or combining the aspects of an American developed roast, but also a Nordic light roast. So just the right spot for me, but that's a personal preference.
Whoa, man.
In terms of the best cup.
I love that answer.
Man, that's difficult.
Infamous, you said, the Nordic countries for their lighter roasts. And I have to agree, I know a lot of people who love those light roasts, and they are just not for me. I like a good medium or even a little bit darker.
Yeah.
Wow. So the UK does it right. Shout out to the UK. You're thinking tea, but go over there and get yourself some coffee. Well, this was awesome, man. Any more updates before we wrap it up? Anything you want to share with the audience before we close out the show?
Yeah, nothing yet. We're just laying low. I should say it's been a busy harvest. So September, October are our resting months, our relaxing months, and in a couple of weeks, 2 months probably, we will already be preparing again for the next harvest, both on my own farm as well as on all the farms of the partners of Ally Coffee. So yeah, just relaxing, honestly, and getting ready for another year.
Oh, man, that's awesome. Enjoy the rest of your time in the Netherlands. I'm sure we will connect again. Safe travels, of course, across the globe. And yeah, just thank you, man. Thank you for always coming on this show. And it's really cool to get your perspective. You're like this international coffee agent. So we appreciate you.
Thanks, Jordan. It was a pleasure to be here. And I hope to see you soon in Costa Rica. We can record a live episode one day.
I'm there, man. We'll get there. 100%. You stay tuned for that, listeners. That's going to be awesome. Yeah. That's all for now, everybody. This is Bram from Ally Coffee and Jordan River signing off, saying have an extraordinary day out there. We'll see you next time on the Coffee, Health, and Science podcast.